study about the Redwood Viscometer practical, right? So, what is the aim? Aim is to study the variation of viscosity of an oil with its temperature. Okay. Introduction. Lubricants are used mainly for two reasons. Number one, to reduce the resistance to relative motion between two surfaces in contact under pressure, and to reduce the wear of surface in contact under the pressure and eliminate danger of seizure as much as possible. There is a tendency for a fluid, better study this, right? There is a tendency for a fluid to resist the relative motion between the two surfaces. This manifests itself as a shearing force, and the degree of resistance is measurable in terms of material property. We call it viscosity, right? So the viscosity of oils changes temperature and tend to decrease with the increase of temperature, right? So now if you are going to consider a liquid, right? So now when we discuss about fluids, right? Basically, like fluids we categorize into two segments, right? Gases and liquids, right? But here when you are going to consider a liquid, like oil, right? The viscosity of oil actually decreases, right? The viscosity of oil actually decreases with the rise in temperature, right? Then maintenance of a suitable viscosity under all operating conditions is essential. Hence, the lubricant must have a variation of viscosity within the suitable range of values for operating temperature range, right? So that's all about the introduction of the practical, right? Okay. Then the apparatus, the equipment that we need: Redwood viscometer, thermometers, and stopwatch, right? I will show you everything. So now I will focus onto the theory, right? The theory part. Okay. Alright. So now I will focus the theory part, right? Now just carefully read. It is known that as the temperature rises, its resistance to flow, in other words, we call as the viscosity, is reduced, right? Okay. So again, carefully read. And hence the time taken to flow a certain amount of oil is also reduced, right? Therefore, if theta is the time taken to collect 50 centimeter cube of oil, the viscosity of oil in Redwood seconds, that we call as capital T, is given by the following equation. Capital T equals 10 times theta, right? That is what we discussed under the Redwood viscometer practical. So time T equals 10 times theta. So that value of viscosity in centipoise, centipoise is the unit that we are going to refer, right? So that value of viscosity in centipoise will be mu equals, within brackets, AT minus B divided by T. Now T we know. What is T? T is the viscosity in Redwood seconds, right? And rho is the relative density of oil, right? Not the density, be very careful, relative density of oil. Now A and B are actually, those are instrument constants, right? What? Instrument constants, right? Yeah. So I hope that side is also clear, right? Now you can refer this, right? Here it indicates the meaning of all the terms, right? Then the next side. Now see, now this is the diagram of the Redwood viscometer. Now see, right? This is the diagram, right? Now here, actually here we have filled the oil, right? Okay. And under that we have kept this 50 centimeter cube, this flask, right? So that it can collect, right? Okay. And here we have actually balanced the container, right? Okay. Okay, so now let's focus the procedure, right? Level the viscometer on the table, right? Level the viscometer on the table. Then pour the supplied sample of oil into the inner cylinder C. Now see, what is the inner cylinder? This is the inner cylinder, okay? Then pour the supplied sample of oil into the inner cylinder C up to the level indicated by the pointer, right? Okay. Then pour water into the outer cylinder. Now outer cylinder you are going to fill with water, right? To the outer cylinder, right? Outer cylinder, right? You have filled the outer cylinder with water, right? Pour water into the outer cylinder. Then switch on electric heater to supply heat to water, right? Okay. That means like we are not directly going to heat oil, right? So we are going to heat through water, right? See, that is why switch on the electric heater to supply heat to water, right? Okay, because now we have filled water at the outer cylinder, okay? Then inner cylinder, what we have is the oil that we are going to test, right? Okay. Then when the water temperature T2 is slightly above the oil temperature, be very careful. When the water temperature T2 is slightly above the oil temperature T1, then measure the time taken to collect 50 centimeter cube of oil, right? Now at the time of collecting, you can just release this. Now here you can see this pin like thing, right? This pin actually covers that hole, right? That allows that fluid inside here, which is this oil, to pass through, right? Now here you can see this pointer like thing, right? Actually now we can lift this pointer, right? Then if we lift this pointer, then oil can pass through this hole, okay? Right. Then repeat the same for different oil temperatures. Now I will show you certain readings, okay? So now I have certain observations, right, that I have collected, right? So now actually I have done this experiment to two different liquids, right? So one is the coconut oil, the other one is the engine oil, right? So now let's focus one. Now first of all, what we are going to do, first of all, actually we are going to raise the temperature of the liquid, right? Okay. Then after that, at that required time, we are going to lift that pointer. Then we can collect the liquid by passing it through that hole, okay? So now when considering coconut oil, right, when the temperature is 91 degrees Celsius, the time taken to collect 50 cubic centimeters of oil is 44 seconds. So then like that, now first we are going to like start this experiment at the highest possible temperature, right? Then later with respect to the time, the temperature will drop down, right? So then now the temperature is 86, then time taken is 48.4 seconds, right? Got it? So like that, for 86, 81, 77, 74, now we have recorded the time taken to collect 50 cubic centimeters of the oil. And the next one is for the engine oil. So now if we can proceed this experiment for the same temperature value, that is one thing that I need to mention, right? So if we can proceed this experiment for the same temperature value, then we can easily compare. Got it? When the oil temperature is 89 degrees Celsius, so this is the time taken. So like that for 79, 75.8 seconds. So like that you can see the rest of the data, rest of the observation, okay? Okay, so now let's see how to do the calculations, right? So now we are going to calculate the viscosity in Redwood seconds for coconut oil, right? So now here we must know, actually here we are going to use an equation called T equals 10 theta, right? So what is theta? Theta is the time taken to collect 50 cubic centimeters of the liquid, right? That means time taken to collect 50 cubic centimeters of coconut oil, right? So now we know that value of theta for certain temperature values, right? So now let's calculate the viscosity in Redwood seconds. So T equals 44 times 10 for the temperature of 91 degrees Celsius, right? So then we know the viscosity in Redwood seconds, right? So then for 86 degrees Celsius, right, it is 48.4 times 10, because now 48.4 is the time taken to collect 50 cubic centimeters of coconut oil, right? So like that we can perform calculations for coconut oil. Agree? So now the same procedure we can adapt, or the same method of calculation we can adapt for engine oil, right, for the temperature values, right? For 89 degrees Celsius, 79, so like that, right? So what is the equation we are going to use? T equals 10 theta. Now the next thing, right? So now we are going to calculate the viscosity in centipoise, right? Okay, the next target is to calculate the viscosity in centipoise, right? So for that we are going to use a particular equation, right? So mu, that is the viscosity in centipoise, equals AT minus B divided by T times density, right? So here this density is actually the relative density. Agree? Again I will tell the equation. The viscosity in centipoise, mu, equals AT minus B divided by T, whole thing like brackets, times relative density, right? So now this A is a constant, right? We call it instrument constant, right? Okay, so what is A? That is what we call as the instrument constant, and B is also an instrument constant, right? Okay, so the value of A is 0.026, right? The value of B is 0.4, right? And what is T? T is the viscosity that you have calculated in Redwood seconds, right? That is why I'm telling, like, before performing this calculation, we must know the viscosity in Redwood seconds, right? So T is the value for the viscosity in Redwood seconds that you have calculated, right? So by using this equation, you can calculate the value of viscosity in centipoise for the respected temperature values, right, for coconut oil, right, by using that equation. Now let's consider one example. For 91 degrees Celsius, mu equals 0.026 times viscosity in Redwood seconds 440 minus 0.4 divided by 440, the whole thing times the relative density of coconut oil, right? So what is the, that means what is the density of coconut oil? 870 kilograms per meter cube. That is the density. So the relative density is what? That is 0.87, right? Agree? Same method or same procedure you can use for engine oil also, right? See, for the respected temperature. So now we have to plot a graph, right? So now we have to plot this graph for the variation of viscosity in Redwood seconds versus the respected temperature, right? So that means here temperature we are going to consider at the x-axis, right? Okay, that means the respected temperature values we are going to place at the x-axis, right? Then with respect to that, we are going to mark the respected viscosity values that you have calculated in Redwood seconds for the y-axis, right? Then we are going to plot two graphs, right, on the same graph paper for engine oil and coconut oil, right? Okay, because for the engine oil also you know the value for the viscosity in Redwood seconds with the respected temperature, and for the coconut oil also you know that, right? So now then you can very easily plot this graph, right? So one is for coconut oil and the other one is for engine oil, right? And I will show you a very clear variation, right? Okay, this is for engine oil. This black colored one is for engine oil, right? Coconut oil is blue colored, right? So then this blue colored one, so this is the blue colored one, right? So that is for coconut oil, right? So this is the graph, right? See, and you have to sketch it very neatly, right? See, on the x-axis we are going to place the temperature values, right? Okay, now see, at lower temperature values, right, then you can see the position of the viscosity in Redwood seconds, right? See, so that is what I want you to study, right? See that variation. Okay, right? So now the next thing, is again you have to do the same thing, right, by keeping the respected temperature values at the x-axis, and now you have to place the viscosity values that you have calculated in centipoise, right, at the y-axis, right? The same thing that you have done for the viscosity in Redwood seconds, right? X-axis the temperature values, then y-axis the viscosity, the calculated viscosity values in centipoise, right? So this is the graph, right? And this is for, this blue colored one is for coconut oil and this black colored one is for engine oil, right? You see the variation. So just study that, right? Okay, so that's how it comes. Okay, let's discuss about the experimental errors, right? So now during this practical, it is much more important to pay attention to these 4 points, right? Okay, so actually these are the causes of experimental errors, right? The fact number 1, the parallax error during reading the temperature values, right? So now when you are going to read the temperature values from the thermometers, right, certain errors can be caused because of the parallax error, right? That is point number 1. Then next thing is the second point, right? So now be very careful, you must fit the valve properly. Now here what I refer as the valve is, here that we are going to use this locking mechanism, or in other words, this is not a lock, right? This is something like a valve, right? So we can lift this valve, like if you want to open this hole, right, in order for that liquid to pass through, right, then we can lift this, right? Or in other words, we can also call this as a valve, right? So now I'm talking about this one, right? Okay, so now there you have to be very careful. See, must fit the valve properly, right? Because we have to ensure that there will be no liquid leakage. Okay, that is another fact, right? So you have to pay attention to that. Next one, take readings at a stable temperature. Now if you are going to consider the temperature, right, that temperature will actually vary, right? It is very difficult to observe the temperature value at a one particular stable position, right? But be very careful when you are going to take the temperature readings, right? You have to be very careful. You have to take the temperatures at a stable value, right? Okay, take readings at a stable temperature, right? Fourth one, must stir the water bath continuously. Now here you know that there is a water bath, right? Just consider here. So now must stir the water bath continuously. What is the reason? The reason is actually for homogeneous rise in temperature, right? So those are the 4 points that I wanted to teach you, right?